Colin married a man named Antonio Rebello, with whom she had 4 children: Julian, Andre, Monique, and Fabienne. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out and they divorced. Colin became a single mother, doing her best to provide a good education for her children. She took on every job imaginable: cashier, stock clerk, waitress. While she had her own dreams for the future, at that time, her children were her priority. I must tell you, she succeeded in raising them to be capable and productive individuals. While we don't have much information about the eldest, Julian, we know that he went to university and then left home. Some say for work, others suggest personal reasons. Regardless of the specifics, it's widely agreed that he lived a successful life and became a role model. As for the second son, Andres Zachary Rebello, we have more details. He apparently became an influencer, often involved in cryptocurrency and fitness. In 2015, through a friend, he met the famous influencer Gracie Piscopo, who was the same age as him. Gracie was an Instagram model who amassed more than 1 million followers on the platform, with an additional 300,000 on YouTube. She turned her name into a brand, and for each post, she earned thousands of dollars. According to ABC, brands paid her $8,000 for a single post, $5,000 for a video, and $800,000 for a 12-month brand ambassador deal. As you can imagine, Gracie had it all: beauty, wealth, and success. Andres, meanwhile, claimed to be earning 6 figures through cryptocurrency. Together, the two of them formed a powerful empire. They began dating and posting pictures together, and the internet went wild. They were young, attractive, wealthy, and everything they shared exuded nothing but perfection. They purchased an impressive house in Beaconsfield, a suburb of Melbourne, Australia, equipped with the finest amenities. They also bought a white Range Rover and traveled to the most paradisiacal destinations imaginable. Expensive handbags, jewelry, suits, and luxury items filled their lives, and eventually they had a baby boy whom they named Romeo. Everything they shared online was simply flawless. Family blogs showing their picture-perfect life. In these posts, the child never cried. He was always smiling, impeccably dressed, and well-behaved. Gracie and Andres appeared as the epitome of a perfect family, and their posts were flooded with positive comments from people who admired them, adored them, and aspired to live their lives. Their online presence sold an image of perfection, luxuries, dreams, and aspirations. Colin, Andres' mother, couldn't have been prouder of him. At just 26, he seemed to have it all. But let's not focus solely on Andres. Moving on to the rest of the children, the third daughter, Monique, doesn't have as much public information available. We know she attended university and briefly left home for work, but in 2020, she returned to her mother's house to train as a paramedic. As for the fourth child, Fabienne, he wasn't quite sure what to do. Some sources suggest that his health was fragile, but others don't mention it at all. What we do know is that he dropped out of school and, while deciding on his future, began working at a supermarket. His mother, Colin, would drive him there every day. They'd wake up early, have breakfast, and then Colin would take him to work. Fabienne, the youngest, was the protege. As the years went by, Colin watched her children grow and become independent. The eldest had already left, the second was practically a millionaire, the third was establishing herself, and the youngest was working. They each had their own lives, plans, and futures. At 58, Colin finally decided to pursue her long-held dream, a career in the health field. From 2013 to 2017, she studied for a degree in biomedical sciences and forensic biology at university. Then, between 2018 and 2020, she earned a master's degree in health policy and leadership at the same university. You might be wondering why she chose health studies. The answer lies in her own health struggles. Colin had heart issues and suffered from Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid gland. These health problems, coupled with the stress of raising 4 children, juggling work, and studying, created immense pressure in her life. Despite it all, she remained positive, determined, and optimistic. According to her doctor, Niall Barrett, she faced 3 major health issues: an underactive thyroid, low bone density, and gastritis. She sought help from a psychologist and created a mental health care plan to cope with the challenges she faced. Her relationship with her children was strong, but she didn't feel much support from friends or extended family. Still, Colin found solace in her accomplishments. At 58, her life felt like it was just beginning. She had studied what she loved, felt fulfilled, and was proud of her children. In 2020, she finally secured a job in her field, and she couldn't have been happier. But on May 25, 2020, everything changed. That morning, just like every other morning, Colin had breakfast with her two younger children, Monique and Fabienne. After breakfast, Monique left for class and Fabienne prepared for work. Around 10 a.m., Colin drove Fabienne to the supermarket, promising to pick him up at 2 p.m. But when Fabienne finished work and came out at 2, Colin was nowhere to be found. Fabienne, frantic and desperate, took out his phone and called his mother, but she didn't answer. He sent her a message, still no response. His anxiety growing, he decided to return home on foot. Upon arriving, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. Immediately, he heard the sound of water running in the bathroom. Someone had to be in the shower, and it could only be his mother. He knocked on the bathroom door several times, calling out to her, asking if everything was all right, but there was no answer. The water continued to run, and the silence grew more unsettling. Fabienne's concern deepened, and after repeated attempts to get a response, he turned the handle and entered. What he discovered inside stopped his heart. Colin was lying on the bathroom floor, unconscious, naked, with the water from the shower pouring over her. Panicked, he rushed to her side, attempting to wake her, but she didn't respond. Desperate, he grabbed his phone and dialed 9900 on 11, relaying the situation to the operator, who gave instructions for CPR. But all efforts to revive Colin were in vain. The paramedics arrived soon after, and despite their attempts, they quickly realized that Colin was beyond saving. Her heart had stopped, and the woman who had once been so full of life was now lifeless. The emergency team followed protocol, and the house was searched. According to the police and medical examiners, there were no signs of a struggle, no forced doors or windows, no evidence of foul play. At first glance, it appeared that Colin had suffered a heart attack and collapsed in the shower, unable to call for help due to being alone. And based on her history of heart and thyroid problems, the case was closed quickly as a natural death. But as the weeks passed, questions began to linger, and the pieces didn't quite add up. Fabienne and Monique, devastated by their mother's sudden and tragic death, struggled to comprehend what had happened. The trauma of finding their mother lifeless left a deep scar, and neither of them could shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The two older siblings, Andre and Julian, found themselves grappling with their mother's sudden death, but it was Julian who ended up taking charge of the situation. Andre, the successful millionaire, influencer, and father, had his mind preoccupied with his own life, leaving Julian to handle the practical matters. He moved back into the family home for 2 months, sorting through all the paperwork and managing the funeral arrangements. It was a time of overwhelming stress and confusion, but little did he know that things were about to take an even darker turn. When a family member dies, there are countless bureaucratic hurdles to overcome, and Julian quickly realized just how complicated things would be. One crucial task was to obtain the medical certificate of death and to register it in the civil registry. For this, he needed his mother's identification documents, but there was a problem. Her driver's license was nowhere to be found. Desperate, Julian asked Fabienne, but he knew nothing about it. Fabienne, Monique, was also clueless, and so Julian turned to Andre. In a calm and seemingly indifferent manner, Andre handed over the license. But when Julian asked why he had it, Andre's response didn't add up. He claimed to have used it for burial arrangements, though those arrangements were supposed to be Julian's responsibility, not his. Julian, too exhausted to argue, chose not to press the issue. He needed to get through this difficult time and didn't want to complicate things further. But as he continued to handle the paperwork, he uncovered a disturbing detail. His mother had 3 life insurance policies, all taken out just 2 weeks before her death. This struck him as strange, but he brushed it off at the time. However, things took an even more sinister turn when he discovered that the policies were not in the names of her 4 children, as expected, but only in the name of one, Andre Zakari. To make matters worse, Julian found out that his mother's will appeared to have been altered, further deepening the mystery. At this point, the situation was starting to look very bleak, and Julian could no longer ignore the unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong. Fabian and Monique were both confused and alarmed. They couldn't make sense of what was happening, and the idea that their mother's death had been ruled natural no longer seemed to hold up. The more they looked into the situation, the less it added up. The worst, however, was yet to come. As the weeks passed, something even stranger occurred. The letters that were supposed to be sent to Colin Rebelo no longer arrived at his house. Instead, they were being redirected to Andre's address. Colin's house, though still occupied by his two sons, became a silent witness to this odd shift. It made no sense for the letters to be redirected, and Julian, desperate for answers, contacted the coroner's office. To his shock, he was told that all information regarding the case was now being given directly to Andre. Andre had declared himself the family's spokesperson, and from that moment on, any details related to the case would only be shared with him. The mystery deepened further when Colin's psychologist called Monique with an unbelievable revelation. The insurance company had contacted her about Colin's life insurance, and she had even filled out some paperwork, signed it, and spoken with someone over the phone. But the psychologist vehemently denied this, insisting that she had never signed anything or communicated with anyone from the insurance company. The news left Monique stunned and horrified. The insurance, the diverted letters, the coroner's office exclusively dealing with Andre, nothing seemed to make sense. As the pieces of this unsettling puzzle began to fall into place, the psychologist immediately contacted the police. A full investigation was launched, and it quickly became clear that someone had committed fraud. The police zeroed in on Colin's 4 children and their families, questioning each one of them in detail. The most suspicious of them all was Andre, who had seemed to be at the center of everything. The authorities pressed him further, interrogating him for hours, but his alibi appeared to be solid, at least for now. However, with the growing evidence of manipulation and deceit, no one was willing to let him off the hook just yet. The investigation had only just begun, and the truth was bound to come to light. Both Andre and Gracie maintained that on the morning of the events, they were together at home, never leaving. They spent the day quietly with their son, and around noon they had lunch with one of Gracie's cousins, who corroborated their account. This alibi seemed solid, but the police were not fully convinced. They issued 2 search warrants, one for Colin's house and another for Andre. The investigators turned both houses upside down, searching for any clue that might explain the suspicious circumstances. Before leaving, they took the precaution of bugging Andre's house with hidden microphones and cameras. These devices remained active from September 9 until December 7, 2020, capturing every conversation and moment that took place. After weeks of surveillance, the breakthrough came. The tapes revealed a clear confession from Andre, who admitted to committing fraud. He revealed that in his mother's name, he had taken out 3 life insurance policies, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. If his mother passed away, he stood to inherit $1.2 million. Gracie, upon hearing this, was devastated. She couldn't believe what her husband had done. "What have you done? You got us into this mess," she sobbed, demanding explanations. She wanted to know if she and their son had meant anything to him in his plans. Andre, overcome with guilt and pressure, confessed that his only concern had been himself. He admitted he had only thought about the money and never considered the consequences for his family. In a heartbreaking moment, Gracie, filmed crying and distraught, continued asking him why he had chosen such a path, but Andre had no answer. The police arrested him for fraud in October, but just a few days later he was released on bail. The investigation continued, but the damage had already been done, and the truth was out. After posting bail, the police uncovered the full extent of Andre's deceit. He had meticulously forged every document, impersonating his mother and signing her name to secure the insurance policies. He didn't stop there. He also used a voicemail to impersonate his mother's psychologist, further fabricating the entire process. The 3 life insurance policies had been arranged with Andre as the sole beneficiary, and if his mother died, he would inherit a staggering $1.2 million. He planned to tell everyone the money had come from cryptocurrency investments. But the question that remained was why? Why did a wealthy man, already living a lavish life, feel the need to kill his mother? At first glance, it didn't make sense. However, the truth was far darker than anyone realized. Andre's life was an illusion. Although he and his siblings had all supposedly made it, Andre's public persona was nothing more than a facade. The eldest had built a successful life in Perth, and the second, a millionaire influencer, seemed to have everything. The next sibling was studying, and the youngest was working. But Andre, the so-called most successful son, was actually living a lie. On social media, he portrayed the perfect life, a beautiful wife, an adorable child, a mansion with a grand fireplace, and luxurious vacations with a white Range Rover. In reality, however, the couple was drowning in debt. $121,000 in personal debt and unpaid bills, including the car they couldn't afford. Despite Gracie earning substantial money, the couple was spending beyond their means. Andre, on the other hand, made no money from his supposed cryptocurrency ventures, which had earned him barely $22 over several years. He was essentially living off Gracie's earnings, relying on her income from collaborations. In a desperate bid to escape their financial troubles, Andre hatched a plan. He remembered his mother, a woman who had dedicated her entire life to her children. She had promised to give her life for them, and Andre took that promise literally. The week before her death, he arranged 3 life insurance policies, ensuring that he would be the sole beneficiary and set to inherit the $1,200,000. The plan, as I mentioned before, was for Andre to collect all the money and tell everyone it was earned through cryptocurrency. He forged his mother's signature on documents and even used an artificial intelligence voice generator to imitate her psychologist's voice. Just days after her death, he began to pressure the insurance companies, especially focusing on a policy worth $320,000. He was eager to collect the payout without delay, but soon realized that the paperwork didn't add up. The insurers requested a forensic exam to determine the cause of death, and Andre continued to falsify information, growing more nervous and making critical mistakes. This prompted the insurance company to make calls to the psychologist and the police, piecing together the truth. By 2022, the police had begun investigating the entire case. Meanwhile, Andre and Gracie continued to maintain a facade of normalcy on social media, sharing images of their happy travels, while the rest of the world remained unaware of the truth. But the police weren't fooled. They began to question the circumstances surrounding Colin's death and decided to rule out natural causes. The autopsy was revisited, and forensic pathologist Raymar Jorf examined the photographs and findings. His conclusion was shocking. While Colin's death initially appeared to be from natural causes, closer examination revealed signs of asphyxiation. There were small bloodstains on his eyelids and bruising, both of which indicated a possible suffocation. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. The details surrounding Colin's death continued to raise suspicions. The possibility of asphyxiation was supported by other subtle injuries, including a bruise on her eyebrow, indicating potential physical violence. Initially, investigators searched for obvious signs of harm, such as scratches or wounds, but nothing was visible to the naked eye. However, something was off about the crime scene. The scene itself appeared unnervingly neat. Colin was found slumped over, naked, with the shower running, but everything else seemed normal at first glance. No signs of a struggle or disorder, yet small details didn't align with a natural death. Colin's body was adorned with jewelry, gold earrings, necklaces, and a gold watch. The watch, however, couldn't have been exposed to water. Her hair was styled in a low ponytail, suggesting she didn't want it to get wet. Yet, if she were truly preparing to take a shower, the updo would have been unnecessary. The hair would have gotten wet regardless, but she had kept it tightly pulled back. A particularly odd detail was the bath mat. It wasn't on the floor where it should have been, but instead was placed on top of the shower screen. If Colin had been planning to take a shower, the mat would have been positioned properly. Everything about the scene seemed staged: the jewelry, makeup, the perfect ponytail. None of it fit with a typical shower setup. It became clear that Andre had smothered his mother. He had made sure to make her look presentable, dressed her up, and applied makeup as if she were about to leave the house, then attacked her. After choking her, he staged the scene, undressed her, placed her in the shower, turned on the faucet, and left the house to create the illusion of a natural death. The evidence was mounting, and it all pointed to Andre's deliberate manipulation of the situation. In November 2022, Andre was arrested and formally charged with his mother's murder. However, by this point, much time had passed and the investigation lacked crucial evidence. There were no recordings from surveillance cameras, no photographs, and no clear evidence linking him to the scene. Furthermore, the police could no longer recover fingerprints from the scene. Despite this, Andre denied everything, insisting that the life insurance policies were entirely his mother's idea. He claimed she had feared turning 60 and wanted to leave something behind for her children, a story that was, in reality, a complete lie designed to cover his tracks. Desperate for evidence, the authorities turned to Andre's computer. They found that he had deleted all activity from December 2019 to July 2020, including internet search history. However, the remaining search queries were telling. Among them, they found searches for causes of coroner's aneurysm and other suspicious topics. The investigation also led them to Gracie's computer, where they discovered something interesting. On May 25, 2020, Gracie had taken pictures all morning, including photos of herself, Andre, and their baby. However, between 10:24 a.m. and 2 p.m., Andre was conspicuously absent from the photos. This raised doubts about the version of events Gracie had originally given. When questioned, Gracie's story shifted. She initially claimed that she and Andre had spent the entire morning together, but now her story was different. She recalled that after breakfast, Andre told her he needed to leave and would be back soon. He said he was going to his mother's house to drop off some clothes for Fabian. After that, he disappeared. Gracie became increasingly worried as hours passed. According to phone records, Andre had made 12 calls between 11:10 a.m. and 11:35 a.m., but he did not answer any of them. In her frustration and fear, Gracie sent him a series of frantic messages, including one that read, "Where the hell are you? What's wrong with you? Answer me. I swear to God, I'm so angry." This phone activity only deepened the mystery of Andre's involvement in the crime. Finally, at 11:33 a.m., Andre answered Gracie's repeated calls, and they spoke for about a minute and a half. He had a habit of keeping his phone on silent, which was why Gracie couldn't get through to him earlier. When Andre arrived, he acted as if nothing had happened, with no scratches, bruises, or signs of violence. He was calm and relaxed, as though Gracie hadn't been frantically trying to reach him during the hours when Colum lost her life. Andre's whereabouts were confirmed in two key ways. First, phone antenna data showed that his cell phone was connected to antennas near his mother's house, indicating he was in the area. Secondly, a witness spotted his white Range Rover parked in front of Coley's house, a vehicle that was unmistakable. With all the evidence falling into place, it became clear that Andre had indeed ended his mother's life. However, preparing for the trial was the next step. From the beginning, Andre denied the murder charges. Although he admitted to the fraud, he claimed innocence on the other charges, maintaining his defense. The prosecution offered him a deal, but Andre refused, believing there was no concrete evidence against him. As the year 2024 arrived, the trial date was set for December 3. The jury deliberated, and on the 5th, they returned with their verdict. On December 5th, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict. Andre Zachary Rebelo was guilty of the murder of Colin Rebelo. The courtroom was stunned by the decision, yet Andre showed no visible reaction. He remained calm and impassive, as if the case didn't even involve him. According to the media, his final sentence is expected to be life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, although it won't be officially handed down until April 4th, 2025. As we await that date, the question remains, could Andre have more secrets? What do you think of this case? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like if you found the story interesting. Regarding Gracie, many were shocked by her actions, especially online, as it seemed impossible that she could stay with him after knowing what he had done. It is believed that they continued to live together until his second arrest in 2022. However, Gracie has defended herself, stating that Andre was the father of her child, and the last thing she wanted was for her son to be affected. She wanted to maintain some semblance of normalcy and stability for him, which led her to stay with Andre until it ultimately became unsustainable. I want to emphasize once again that, according to the police, Gracie had nothing to do with the crime. She was not an accomplice, nor did she suspect anything. She was just another victim of this man's lies. Now, it's your turn. What do you think about all of this? If you were in Gracie's place, would you have done the same thing, something different, or taken another approach altogether? Let me know your thoughts. The secret word for today is nets. Leave it in the comments, and as soon as I see it, I will like your comment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.